Let's look at how to divide two fractions. And here I'm picking one positive fraction and one negative fraction. 1/4 divided by -1/16. So in order to do division of two fractions, we need to remember the rule. So the rule is called keep, change, flip. So you will keep the first fraction and you will change the division sign to multiplication, and then you will flip the second fraction. So following new order, for we have the first fraction, you got to keep it. So let's write down 1/4. So make sure you don't flip the first fraction. And you have the division sign, we're going to change it to multiplication. So here we're going to use a dot. You can also use a cross sign if you want to. And for the second fraction, we will flip it. So when we flip, we don't change the sign. So the negative will still stay there. We only flip the top and the bottom. All right, so let's put a 16 on the top and 1 on the bottom. So now we end up with a multiplication of two fractions. So now we need to know how to multiply two fractions. And the rule is multiply straight across. So this is the rule for multiplication. Okay, so let's multiply, put a long line on the top. So we will multiply the numbers on the top. 1 times 16. And the numbers on the bottom, 4 times 1. And what do we do with the negative sign? We will use the multiplication of sign numbers. A positive number times a negative number, you will end up with a negative. So let's put the sign in front of it. Okay, so here there's the third line here. When you multiply a positive number and a negative number, it doesn't matter if they are fractions or whole numbers or decimals. As long as one of these is positive, the other is negative, you will end up with a negative. So we have 3 rules here in order to do this problem. So now let's simplify it. Again, the last tip is whenever you deal with fractions, make sure your fraction is simplified. So the top will be 1 times 16. That will give us a 16. The bottom, 4 times 1, we get a 4. And because we need to simplify the fraction, so we're going to look at the top and the bottom. 16, bottom 4, so they have a common factor 4. So let's divide both top and bottom by 4. And we're going to end up with 4 on the top, 16 divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 on the bottom, that will give us 1. And then minus sign, we keep it in front of the number. And we can simplify this further because 4 divided by 1, any number divided by 1 will be itself. So we simply get -4. Okay, so make sure you simplify as much as possible. Okay, so let's go over this question again. So rule number 1. How do we divide two fractions? Keep the first fraction, change the sign from division to multiplication, and flip the second fraction. If it's negative, keep the negative sign. If it's positive, keep it positive. And rule number 2, how to multiply two fractions. You will multiply them straight across, which means you multiply top number and the top numbers, bottom numbers. If they are signed numbers, say one of them is positive or the other is negative or both negatives, and you have to determine the sign first. Well, you can determine it after you multiply the fractions. So 1/4 is positive, and negative 16/1 is negative, and positive times negative is negative. So this is rule number 3. And after you multiply the top and top, 1 times 16, bottom 4 times 1, and you end up with this fraction. And this step can be omitted if you are familiar with the process, so you don't have to write down this. You can go ahead and put 16 on the top, 4 on the bottom, because you can multiply in your head very quickly. So you would go to this step, negative 16/4, but you do have to simplify this. If you realize negative 16 divided by 4 is just 4, and copy the negative sign, you can skip this step right here. Or you can simplify both top and bottom to get 4/1, and 4 divided by 1 is 4.